I was thinking, well, I can't look at the face of God because I'll die, and I really don't feel like dying, so I'm just gonna go ahead and keep my head down because I just don't want to look at God. Hey y'all, welcome to Finding His Face, and today I want to talk to y'all about a scripture that is near and dear to my heart. And it's kind of unorthodox because I don't think a lot of people really care too much for this particular scripture, even though all scripture is important. But this one is real significant for me, and I think a lot of Christians misconstrue and misunderstand the meaning and the significance behind this particular one. And it's the scripture when the Father was talking to Moshe in Exodus when he said, "No one shall look upon the face of God and live." Now, the reason why that's real significant for me is because I actually had an encounter with the Father several years ago where he said most people interpret that scripture as a scripture of limitation, meaning that they can't access me because of their understanding of that particular word. But what is really happening is that scripture is a scripture of invitation. And the reason why I know that that's true, especially because the Father said that to me, was because I actually had an encounter about 15 years ago where this was during a season where I was actually filled with anger and hatred and rage towards the Father, and I was really in a state of rebellion and disobedience. So I really didn't really care to really be bothered with a relationship with him too much, even though deep down I honestly did. And what was so interesting about this particular season of my life is that the Father really didn't care about whether or not I really wanted a relationship with him or not. He was real adamant about pursuing intimacy with me. And just this one particular day, I randomly decided I was gonna, spend some quiet time with God just to see what happened, just to see where it went. And I ended up having a vision where I was in heaven in the throne room, and I was standing behind a velvet rope with a red carpet, like I was waiting in line to actually have a conversation with the Father, because he was standing like on the right hand side of me, and he signaled for me to come over and talk to him. So when I walked over and I stood in front of him, I put both my hands in front of me and I bent my head down as if I were in prayer. But the reason why I did that was because that scripture where it says no one shall look upon the face of God and live. So I was thinking, well, I can't look at the face of God because I'll die, and I really don't feel like dying, so I'm just gonna go ahead and keep my head down because I just don't want to look at God. I'm just not gonna do that. I'm gonna respect God. That was my thought process. While I was doing that, I immediately got pulled out of my body and I watched my encounter with God. And even though my thought process was, I'm trying to respect God, so I'm not looking at him in his face, what I actually physically saw on me was shame. And that really took me aback for a second. I'm looking at myself like, I'm literally seeing shame on me. Like, I'm ashamed to actually look at the face of God. Like, I don't feel worthy. I don't feel good enough to look at the face of God. Like that, I thought that was really interesting, that disconnect. And so as soon as I caught that realization, I immediately got thrusted back into my body, and I'm back in that position with my head down. And all of a sudden I heard the Father say, "Lift your head up." And I freaked out in this encounter because I'm thinking to myself, the Father's trying to kill me. God is trying to kill me. Like, I'm not trying to look at him and die. Like, what is he doing? So I slowly put my head up and I started looking at him because I'm like, the Lord is really just trying to take me out. He really don't care too much about me. This is how my brain is talking while I'm actually having this encounter. And when I lifted my head up to look at him, he signaled for me to climb up on his lap. And it was interesting how he wasn't saying any words to me, but I instinctively knew what he wanted out of me, what he wanted me to do. And yes, I'm in my 30s and the Father is asking me to climb up on his lap and just sit on his lap like a 2-year-old. There was a little part of me that was like, I'm kind of grown for this. I know, saying that to God, how you too grown for something? But because it was an unusual, unorthodox encounter, I went ahead and I just engaged it. So I'm climbing on God's lap, and as I began to climb, I started to recognize how massive God's physical body was. Like, his throne got bigger, his body got bigger, and I'm just kind of fascinated with this whole experience as I'm having it. And so I get and I sit in his lap, and I'm extremely uncomfortable sitting in his lap because, remember, I'm in anger, in rage, and resentment towards God because of how my life was. So I was like, I'm here, but I really don't I'm not comfortable with being close to you. I'm not comfortable with this. I mean, you're God, right? I shouldn't be here, right? And all of a sudden, the Father just extended his arms out and then wrapped his arms around me like a big old teddy bear daddy that he is. And he put my head on his chest and he put his cheek on top of my head, and he just kind of just leaned in and just embraced me. He said absolutely nothing during this whole encounter. All of that he did was just the embrace. And I never ever felt such love, such rest, such peace, such safety ever in my life. And there was an aspect of me that was almost like, I was almost afraid of that and angry at the same time, because it was like I have to have a spiritual encounter in order to feel this type of love and acceptance. And it was almost like I didn't want that moment to go away. It was such a fulfilling moment, even though it was a quick moment. There was such an awe of, I can't believe I felt such overwhelming love, and that you actually like me, and that there's nothing that I've ever done ever to change your mind about how you feel about me. No matter how many times I've told you I will never ever do what you tell me to do, you seem to not care about that. So going back to the scripture where it says no one should look upon the face of God and live, it was almost as if he was saying to me, I'm asking for you to encounter me as if you are Esther. If you die, you die. You have to be willing to risk everything to be connected to me, because I've given up everything for you. I've given you everything. Give me everything. So the question is, will you die if you look upon the face of God? Yeah. But what dies is who you think you are, what you think you know, what you think you believe, and everything that you think you know about anything that ever existed, including your relationship with him. Your relationships may die around you. Your job may die. You may end up becoming homeless. You may lose your furniture, your car. You may lose everything. That's what dies. Everything about who you think you are could possibly die, and actually might. But you have to be willing to give up everything. You have to be willing to take the risk, because in that risk, that's where his face is. Because think about what Yeshua did. When Yeshua came into the earth realm, he came to reveal the Father. He came to reveal the face of God. So if Yeshua came to reveal the face of God, then that means that we have permission, that we have access to his face. Automatic access. All we have to do is we have to be willing. Are you willing and obedient? Then you will inherit the land. What is in the inheritance? It's his face. Everything is centered around his face. It's not about what you can get. It's not about what you can earn, the car, the house, none of that stuff. It's about the relationship that you have with him, because that love that I experienced while sitting on his lap, ain't felt that from anything or anybody else. I can't say I haven't felt it since then, because I have, but I haven't had any relationship with anyone that made me feel the way that he did. So it's an invitation and not a limitation. So I wanted to present that to y'all, and I hope y'all have a good day. Until next time.